Welcome to another exciting episode of Riding Through the Unknown. I'm your host, Michael, and joining me tonight on this series of Delving into the Unknown is someone who has such a unique background. I am so excited I could have her on the show. She is amazing. She is awesome. You guys are going to love her. I give you Lily Nova.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. And I also see Victor in the chat. Hey, Victor.
Yes, well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And wonderful intro, by the way. Great editing skills. I liked it.
Well, thank you. That credit goes to my cousin.
You did a good job.
Yeah. I have to admit, I watch it a lot of times when even I don't have a show. I'm like, click it on because it's so cool.
Yeah, it gets you excited. It gets you pumped.
It does. Yeah, I agree, Victor. The music gets you pumped up too.
Yeah.
So besides being an author and a public speaker, would you mind giving the guests, or not the guests, the viewers, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So where do we start? So I'm a contactee. I've been contacted by a variety of different extraterrestrial beings and had a variety of spiritual and paranormal experiences, but it didn't start until COVID. That's whenever things really just kind of flew wide open. I started shooting space photography, and while I was out during the lockdowns and everything, and while I was out shooting space photography, I fell madly in love with that. And then after doing that for a few months, that's whenever I had my first very, very close UFO experiences. And then I started documenting them with my camera. And because I became curious, I had never seen anything like that before. And then these UFOs just started popping up left and right everywhere, and suddenly I was being bombarded with UFOs. So I really just kind of got a crash course in a lot of this over the last 4 years since 2020. And I've had a lot of really, really strange and incredible experiences since then. And it started off with, the UFO sightings, very, very close UFO sightings. It's not like I was just seeing something far away in the sky. These ships came pretty close to me, and orbs and things like that. And then I learned how to initiate contact with them, so calling them in at will, and then a communication developed with them. So that's kind of like the gist of what's happened, and it's really evolved over the last few years, and it's been an incredible experience.
I have to admit, when you say in your bio space photography and astrophotography, I was like, when I saw it, I was like, that is so cool. So what exactly is that, though? Because I'm thinking everyone has different ideas of what that means.
Yeah. So I have a DSLR camera that you can put different lenses on it. And I was learning how to use this camera, and I just became obsessed with it. So I was spending every single night out practicing, and it's really amazing what you can capture with these different lenses. Some lenses can be like you're putting a telescope on the end of your camera, so you can see really far out. So I would take pictures of like the Milky Way. I would go to really rural areas with little light pollution where you can see the Milky Way with your eyes, and then I take pictures of that. You can take, really close-up photos of the moon, close-up photos of even other galaxies. I've got a picture of the Andromeda galaxy, different stars and nebulas, which nebulas are like they're beautiful clouds of different colored gas that exist naturally out there. So yeah, that's what I was doing, taking pictures like that with my camera. So
taking pictures of, like, say, the moon, do you ever catch stuff on there and you're like, oh, this was airbrushed?
So not necessarily, because you have to, you'd need a really, really, really zoomed in lens or a huge telescope to be able to get in that close. But yeah, I mean, even just looking at the moon kind of close up, it does look kind of strange because it looks like all of these kind of impacts are on it. The moon is just a strange specimen, and I've actually done remote viewing on it to see what was going on there. And well, some remote viewers have said, you're not allowed to remote view the moon. And whenever I tried, I kind of had a weird feeling about it. So I decided, because there are bases there, active bases there. So what I did instead is I said, okay, can I remote view the moon from a different time period, so that I wasn't kind of like infringing on, what was going on there at this time. And so I got away with that. And I saw a variety of different ET races there. I think this was probably a long time in the past. And then I saw it open up and there was a structure inside of it. So the whole thing, it's hollow and it's a base essentially.
I have to admit, that is brilliant to just say, can I change the time? I would never have thought of that.
Yeah, because some of these things, I'm sure, so you had remote viewing in your intro, so I'm sure you know a decent amount about it. There are some people, for these, top secret things, they have protocols in place to block people from remote viewing, or there might be entities or beings looking out for people who might be trying to remote view. So yeah, that was just kind of like a safety measure, how I got around it. I just viewed it from a different time period. It is kind of like the movie Moonfall. It is kind of like that, yeah.
And I love how you describe that it's a structure within a structure, because I've always felt like the explanation of something hit the earth and it split off and we have this sphere and then we have a smaller sphere. I was like, wait, if something hit us and took a chunk off, we wouldn't be a perfect sphere. There would be a piece missing.
Yeah, that doesn't quite make sense. I could see how maybe it would make sense if over like millions or billions of years of orbiting and the gravity maybe helped kind of smooth it out. But yeah, it doesn't quite make sense to me either. Well, and yeah, they have a lot of things wrong. I think part of it purposefully wrong, to not tell what's really going on. But yeah, so that's part of it. And another thing that really kind of was a huge red flag to me was the asteroid belt, how there's an asteroid belt in the middle of our solar system. That doesn't quite make sense to me. And then I hear about the planet that was destroyed. I don't know how long ago that was, but a really long time ago. And that's what is in the asteroid belt, the remnants of that planet. And that makes sense to me.
Right. And what I find interesting too is we were just told it was an asteroid belt, there. And then when they start talking, people started going, about Nibiru and Tiamat. They're like, well, the asteroid belt is actually Tiamat when it was destroyed. And it's like, it's convenient. Right as soon as that comes out, we have a name for what is in the asteroid belt.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. So things are starting to come together slowly.
So when you're taking pictures in space, like, do you plan ahead and saying, I want to look at this and this and this, or do you just kind of glaze across, scan the sky and say, there's a photo opportunity?
Yeah, so I mean, there's tons. If you look up like different nebula, on, just on a Google search or whatever. That's kind of what I would do to get ideas of what I wanted to photograph. And then there are some things that are easier to capture than others, like the Orion Nebula, which it's easy to find because it's right under Orion's belt, and that's a famous constellation. So things like that, because you have to, they call it star hopping, because you have to literally find this tiny little, I mean, it's a huge object, but to our eyes, we can't see it. We can't see it with our eyes. So you have to find this little tiny area in the sky, and you have to get it exactly precisely in that spot, which can take a long time to do. So there are some kind of like easier targets and more difficult targets to capture. So that was kind of way things that I knew, like the Pleiades, the Orion, the Andromeda galaxy is pretty easy to find. And then I would kind of just like look through pictures of things that I thought looked cool that I wanted to capture also.
It's interesting you point that out too. So when you go and you say the Orion Nebula, do you memorize where, after the first time you find the nebula? So when you go and look up, you're like, oh, okay, there's, say, the second star. It's a little bit to the right, and you're able to pinpoint it faster? Or do you still find yourself going, where is that pesky nebula?
For the most part, once you practice with it and maybe do it a few times or do it once, then you get a better feeling for it, so it becomes easier. But if kind of like another language, if you don't use it, you lose it. So if you're not looking at it for a while, or it's been a while, like sometimes you may forget. But yeah, it can be like that. As you spend more time out there, you start to kind of learn things like the back of your hand.
So I'm curious, being a cosmic channeler, do you ever get like something coming to you and saying, hey, move your camera over here, take a photo over here, we want you to see this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you definitely get, I've gotten impressions. Sometimes I will hear words of something telepathically telling me to, or suggesting, or then you get a feeling to maybe go outside and look up or look in this specific area. So yeah, that definitely happens. Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure they're nice about it. They're not taking the 2x4 saying, you forgot the camera.
No, yeah, they're very nice. And they have a sense of humor. They're fun. The star beings that I communicate with, at least, they're fun.
So how did you become a cosmic channeler?
Well, I went through training, and there's different types of channeling. I went through training like with the star beings, with the ETs. There's different types of channeling. So it's not always, sometimes people hear channeling and they automatically think that there's like an entity coming into your body and taking over your body. That's not the type of channeling. Like, have you heard of Bashar?
Right.
Yeah. So that's like a type of channeling. That's not the type of channeling I do. Channeling can also be you're channeling information or messages. So that came with kind of with practice, and as my subtle senses developed and my extrasensory perception, I kind of was able to fine tune my intuition and being able to decipher and receive messages. And a lot of that, what helped that was meditation, helped that a lot. Spending time just out under the stars and connecting and kind of just being still and in a peaceful state helped a lot. And then it just kind of grew. It's like a skill. It grows as you continue doing it, if that makes sense.
It does. And I'm also kind of curious with your book, Contactee. So I gather from the cover and title that it's about your UFO experiences. But I'm curious, are there any experiences that you were like, I can't put this in the book because I just don't think people are going to gravitate to it or understand it like I'm wanting, and so you kind of pick and choose what you thought the book would need?
Yeah, I was pretty open and honest with everything. In the book is my first year only, which the first year was a lot. A lot happened that first year. I had a lot of very intense contact experiences. Trying to think if there was anything I purposefully left out. I don't think so, but there were a lot of things that I left out that came just a little bit later that I'll have to put in a book too. And I wanted this book to be friendly for beginners who are just getting into the topic, but also interesting and profound for people who have been interested in this or been awake for like 20, 30 years. So it's a good read for both. There are other things that I didn't put in there, like, and I touched briefly on it at the very end, like secret space program. The more of the nature of the dark side, I put a little bit in there, but I didn't dive into that as much because that kind of came after my first initial training is when I started seeing more of that. And what else? Hybrid programs, things like that are things that are going to go in book 2.
Okay. So the books are going to be kind of like journals of your development, is what it sounds like.
Yeah. And I think it's also activating the readers, because a lot of the people who are going to gravitate towards this book, they are seekers of truth, and a lot of them have experiences or even past life connections or star connections or whatever, maybe connections with the SSP or the hybrid program for the future book, that have these connections or have had these experiences, but they don't remember it. So it will help kind of like trigger and activate the people who read it is kind of the goal. And then also they'll learn. I think the goal is to teach people through my experiences, and to also have kind of a profound effect on them that kind of helps them to remember and just helps them on their journey.
Yeah, I think that's really admirable, and I look forward to that because I have experiences where people have said, "Oh yeah, I've seen you with this and that," and I have no memory. It's like, so I'm like, I trust these people, and I know they're, not just misleading me, but at the same time, in the back of my mind, it's like, why can't I remember this?
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. And there are things that can be put in place that, of course, to where we don't remember, and there can be ways around that. Meditation has been very helpful. Getting into kind of like you can go get like quantum healing hypnosis sessions from other people. I would recommend doing it with somebody that you trust. If you want to do that can help you kind of recall these memories. So there's ways. You can also do self meditations, hypnosis meditations on yourself, which is what I've done. With the assistance of some of the star beings, and they've helped me kind of like probe into some of these memories. So then I'd also like to make it, both books, it is also a guide to teach people how to do these things for themselves. It's not just me sharing my experience. It's also, this is how I did it. So yeah, but then also just hearing other people's stories or what's happened to other people. If it resonates with you, or you kind of have like an aha moment, there's a reason for it, because something similar has happened to you. So just hearing it or reading it can help unlock that for you also.
Right. And so really, in truth, it's almost like you're what a friend of mine, Heidi Pop, likes to call a way shower.
Yeah, I like Heidi Pop. Yeah. Yep, that's my job. That's my mission.
Yeah. there's a lot of us, and I like that because we always have such vast backgrounds that it's like when people say, "What do you call yourself?" It's like, well, I don't know because I'm this, 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 and this.
Mm-hmm.
So when I heard her use that term, I was like, yeah, that term sums us up.
Yeah. Yeah, and all of us who are here right now, those who are listening right now, you, people who have started their own shows, or even they're in the chat often in these different, YouTube channels and things like that. I mean, we're all way showers. We're among kind of like the first wave of people who are awakening and sharing and advocating for these topics and this information during a time of extreme change on Earth. So over the next decade, like, I don't even know if we'll recognize this planet in 10 years. I think a lot of things are going to change over the next decade, for sure, in our lifetimes.
Wow, you're being generous. I'm hoping for like 3 years or 2 or 3 years max to have major change.
Well,
and then
no.
to adjust.
Yeah, no. Okay, so yeah, and in 2025 is a really big year that I get for a lot of disclosure and a lot of really big changes happening. I guess I more meant like that will be like in the 2030s. I got the message that ETs will be like on the ground with us in the 2030s. So that's a really, really big change.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I guess I meant more like that. Like yeah.
And when you say that, it makes me kind of interested in thinking, those of us who are like hybrids, where we're star and human, when they have like what we call the embassies, will we be able to just walk in and be like, scan and go, yeah, I really am one of these? Or will it be like a moment of going, wait, why isn't the door working? This isn't fair.
Yeah, that's funny. That's a good potential. I mean, and that's a good point also because we're hybrids. A lot of us, we've had ET. Well, actually, yeah, I've had beings show me that they've been planting. They've said they've been planting seeds in our DNA for many, for generations, and a lot of us, we each have our own kind of like genetic heritage and makeup and star families that have been contributing to our DNA. So yeah, we are. I mean, as a whole, humanity is a hybrid, but then we've also got kind of like extra hybrids, which are, I think, the way showers. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I agree, and I feel like that's why we're being awakened at different levels. Because I feel like if we all awoke at the same time, it would be like everyone going, okay, what are we doing? Whereas in stages, it's like everyone's like building upon and sharing and going, oh, okay, and it's making it easier for the next generation.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I like that.
So being a CE5 practitioner, that is, taking it to meaning you're one that goes out there, and do you do the motion like clicking on and off flashlight communication, or are you the one that says just shine the beam up and wait for them to show up?
I actually don't do either of those things. You can do that. I do have a laser and I've used it here and there, but I found you don't necessarily have to do that. Sometimes I hear that can actually kind of like cause them to flash too, like getting hit with the laser light. But more, it's evolved for me. So in the beginning, it was very much about CE5 and calling in the ships. And now CE5 to me means more of having kind of like an internal experience, not necessarily external. And of course, the orbs and the ships can come too. I've caught tons of them on camera, but I've kind of shifted my gear a little bit because they can be all around us at all times on the ground. I've had that happen quite a number of times where, you know, I see them even with Sasquatch too, where I see them, they're just in another dimension, but they're like right in front of us. And I've had that happen before where I was outside doing a CE5 and a ship didn't appear, but I felt them appear around me and I could see them, not physically manifested, but I could see them around me. And I said, and I was outside, you know, doing a CE5. I think this was last spring. And I said, well, if you're really here on the ground with me, can you touch me? And then I felt a hand touch my shoulder. And I was like, okay, okay, you're really here. So it can happen in a variety of ways. So that's kind of more the CE5 that I like to do now, is more of kind of like an internal connecting with them at a different level, not necessarily calling in the ships with lasers and flashlights and stuff like that.
That's actually better, because I was talking with another guest that does CE5, and they brought up an interesting point of when you're just blindly clicking a light in space or the laser, which honestly you're not supposed to do because it blinds the pilots.
Yeah, you can get in trouble for that's a felony.
But they were pointing out that you can call in the government reverse engineered craft and tell them where you're at. And I was like, I never thought about that.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that. And that's another thing you kind of have to be mindful that some of these UFOs that you may see, they aren't extraterrestrial. They can be man-made craft. So I think, but with like the star beings, you set your intention on who you want to make contact and connect with, and you can connect with them instantly through consciousness. So getting in, you know, a relaxed state and kind of like tuning in, and you can use like crystals and things like that to like amplify and crystals are very advanced technology. We don't even know exactly how to use these, but they're very powerful. Apparently, this is a lot of them power their ships with this, and it makes all of our technology work. So you can like hold crystals in your hand that can help you communicate and connect with them, and things like that. And probably some other types of gear that you could use, like maybe like EMF readers, kind of some of the more like paranormal gear to help you like document evidence of them being there. But I've even caught photos of them and videos of them in either orbs, or I've caught a group of beings that looked kind of like light, that they were kind of like hologramming in or like manifesting into the room on my camera. So that's what I started to like to do. And it's more stealthy than them just appearing as a big ship in the sky, because that's going to draw a lot of attention. It can even draw government attention, and we don't want that. They can manifest in these other kind of interdimensional ways, and you can even capture that on camera. So that's kind of what I like to do.
That's really cool. And I'm kind of curious, you know, because I am a paranormal investigator. Mm-hmm. When you mention paranormal experiences, can you share some of those?
Mm-hmm. Well, so I'm no on ghosts, all right? Like, I'm a no on ghosts. I will mess with the aliens. I'm good with the aliens, but I don't like, I mean, I guess that's kind of rude of me to say. Ghosts used to kind of like creep me out, but I used to love, like, I was just watching Ghost Adventures yesterday, actually. Do you know that show? Ghost Adventures?
I do, and I am so not a fan of that show. Well, so let me clarify. When I say I'm not a fan of the show, is I don't like the notion of how he sells investigating as you amp up and you know, antagonize something and then send somebody else in to deal with it.
Yeah, I agree with that, because that was the first time I had watched. I used to watch it all the time, like, you know, years and years ago. But this is my first time watching it in a while, and I was like, oh my god, like he can be very Zach. Sometimes it's funny, but yeah, he can be very aggressive and also sending people into kind of dangerous situations once he kind of riles that energy up. And I didn't see anybody coming in at the end and helping these spirits pass unless they do that and they don't film it.
I don't
So
think they do.
which is what they should do, because a lot of these, you know, spirits are trapped. And it's residual energy that needs to be cleared and transmuted. So I agree with that. But yeah,
I
so
think ghost hunters and kindred spirits do that.
Kindred Spirits. I remember I used to watch that one. I was just thinking about that one. I was like, I think I'd probably like to rather watch that one. It's been a while since I've seen it. But yeah, they're very intuitive too. I think they're psychics also, maybe. Or they're just in tune with it.
I think Amy might be.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, they have definitely a different vibe, a more respectful vibe. I think Zach's better at getting the kind of demonic energies all riled up. But yeah, so I've never seen a ghost. I've felt a ghost, and I've kind of seen things out of the corner of my eye, some kind of strange things and stuff like that. And since my psychic abilities opened up, so after I started having these UFO experiences, then it started opening me up to having other experiences. I've communicated with past loved ones since then. I remember coming up the stairs. So I live in a condo, and I remember coming up the stairs a little while. This was maybe last year or sometime in the last year. And I saw something out of the corner of my eye, and I felt a strong presence, like there was like a ghost or something there. I didn't see like a bunch of details, but it was a very strong energy, and I like saw it out of the corner of my eye. And it kind of freaked me out for a second. I'm like, nope, nope, nope. And then I realized it was my neighbors. It was something that I think he was holding on to, maybe a past loved one or something that needed help. So they kind of like asked me for help to kind of like heal and clear and help them move on. So I've had things like that happen where things have come to me for help moving on. And then then I've had experiences with Sasquatch too, as well as like extraterrestrials, and then past loved ones and angels and things like that.
So what's interesting is I was talking with a guest last night about this, and we were discussing how, like you're saying, you know, paranormal, you instantly think ghost, and you're like, nope, not going there. And we're like, that's only like a small part of the paranormal. Yeah. When you actually, I did an article where I looked up and I was like, you know, what is paranormal? And the most basic sense was anything that's unexplained.
Yeah.
So when I said I turned and I started doing my shows now to where my paranormal show saying, you know, if there's a topic out there that's unexplained, I'm going to try and have it on the show, because that's a paranormal purview. And my hopes is that, like, people, like in your situation where you're like, your first instinct is, oh no, and you're like, I don't want to even approach this, goes, you know, maybe it's not what I think it is, and, you know, kind of temper with it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a really good point. And yeah, other things that are kind of like paranormal, like maybe like portals and things like that. There is a very wide variety. Fairies and fairy circles in Ireland and stuff like that. Werewolves, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned fairies. I had a couple of friends in Ireland that I would talk to on Facebook, and I'd always say to them, you know, what about the fairy folk? And they're like, you seriously believe that? And I was like, you're in Ireland. You're telling me you don't?
Wow. My friend's seen one. my friend, and she's super Irish, and she's very, very connected to the fairies, and she's very into gardening, and she invoked them. She made, she had a beautiful yard with all the fairy stuff in it, their favorite flowers and all that. And she came out one night in the middle of the night to water her flowers. She would water them at night because it was hot during the day. And she saw this kind of glowing, illuminated fairy-like creature, and it scared her. She like screamed and ran, but I was like, that's so cool though. Afterwards she was probably not scared, but I guess in the moment it freaked her out because it was unexpected. But and if you know Margie Kay, she's captured them on camera before too.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to look her up.
Oh yeah, you'd like her. She's big into remote viewing. She's into MUFON. She does a lot of investigations. She's very gifted. She's very gifted. She goes out in the field and does a lot of investigations. But she's also she's very tuned in and psychic, so she does a lot of remote viewing and things like that.
Yeah. As for me, I feel like I've encountered fairies twice. And once was I went outside and I happened to take a photo in our front yard, and there's like this glow, and it looks like little wings coming off of the glow, and I was like, that is definitely a fairy.
That's beautiful. That's amazing. I've had them steal my stuff before.
Oh yeah, they're very entertaining tricksters is the polite way I'll put it.
Yeah.
It was so that being brought up in metaphysics, I would have a lot of people who are teaching stuff say, oh, if anything ever goes missing, just ask the fairies to return it.
Yeah.
To where you can find it. That was the key. Return it where you can find it or where it originally was.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to carry a pendulum with me, and I used to use it a lot, and that helped me with developing my communication and all of that. And I brought it over to a friend's house, and this friend, I had just, he was local, and we were chatting. He had UFO experiences. He had very, very strong energy with them too, and he had some interesting experiences. So we became friends, and I went over to his apartment one time, and I was sitting on the couch, and my pendulum, which I used it all the time. So at this time, I kept it in my fanny pack, like on me at all times. It never left my sight. I always knew where it was. And it just like vanished while I was over there. And that really bummed me out. I went back over there like months later, sat back down on the couch. And after a minute, I looked to my right, and the pendulum had suddenly just appeared right next to me and was just sitting right next to me. And he was like, that was not there before. He looked all over for it. And he had another strange thing happen in his apartment where he was eating a piece of cheese, and he dropped the cheese, and then on the way down to the floor, before it hit the floor, it vanished, and it never hit the floor, and it was just gone. So he's had some weird things happen.
That's a moment where I don't care who you are, you would have to sit there and say, this paranormal stuff is real.
Yeah, that blew my mind, because that was very obvious. Like, you can't get any more obvious than that. So that was a big confirmation. Or it's hard to get more obvious than that,
Yeah, and there's always these moments too where you're like, you'll put down the remote on the armrest right next to you, and then commercial comes on and you go to grab it, and you're like, why is it now on the other side? Or why is it on the table? How did it, and being like, when did it move?
Right. Yep, things like that can happen too, definitely.
And the amazing thing is, like, with me is my sight is like so unique in that any slight movement, my eyes will automatically turn to see what that movement is. So that's when I say, like, the remote moved, and I'm like, how? It's like I never even looked at the remote moving.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting, fascinating things going on.
So what is something out there, whether in the sky or on Earth, that you would be like, I want to go experience? I want to see it or take a photo of it. Is there anything left out there for you?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it'd be cool to consciously be out in space and out in a nebula, being able to see a nebula out from this or a galaxy from a spaceship window. I think that would be cool. You could probably accomplish that through, I know you could accomplish that through astral projection too. I've done that in lucid dreaming where I flew through the stars, and that was absolutely amazing, and it felt very, very real. So I guess being out in space would be kind of like the final frontier, or going into inner Earth would also be a great experience. I think that I would really enjoy. So I guess those would be my 2 bucket list items.
It always cracks me up when people, because being, having knowledge of being in the SSP, and people are like, I want to go into space. I'm like,
you've already been.
Yeah, been there, done that. It's like, yeah, it would be cool to see, I guess, but it's like, no, I don't have the draw to go, hey, let me go pay SpaceX for a trip up and take a look and come back and be like,
right. No, I guess I more meant like going on a spaceship with like star beings and remembering it. I know I've been up there, but I haven't I don't remember it. So that would be cool to be out there and remember it. That would be more fun than going with SpaceX, I think.
Yeah. And one of the things that was kind of surprised me, and I was like kind of solidified that, yeah, being in the programs is unique for everyone, is I was talking with a couple of people who have full memory and of everything. And I said, so you know of being in space? Yeah. Being out there? Yeah. And the suits that we wear and everything. And I said, so how many times did you go up on the ship, no helmet or anything, no breathing devices, just walked on top of the ship in space and just took care of whatever needed to be done? And he looked at me and they were like, never. And I was like, oh, I've done it quite a few times. They're like, that's really cool that you can do that.
Interesting. Yeah, that is interesting.
But I find there is a catch to it too, because I'll be here and I'll be like, you'll see me like move and stop, and it's because in my mind I'm thinking, okay, this is how I move in space and through the programs. I'm instantly there, and it's like, oh crap, I'm still here. Let me get the keys.
Is this like an astral projection type thing, or what? Could you explain that a little bit more?
So I have memory and knowledge of when I sleep, I travel, and so I can be like guided to go to certain places, and then I'll just disappear.
Okay.
And a gentleman named Jim Harmon, who built the Trinity table, and this was a device that rocked back and forth on a rod, I think it was, and it was wood. And it was designed to, the motion would take your body and give you an out-of-body experience.
Oh, wow.
And he would watch everyone, and he said both times that I was there with him, he would laugh because he would go, I saw you one time, the first time I saw you on the river on a boat, But then I just saw the boat and you just vanished.
Hmm.
And then the next time was I saw you start, but then you took off somewhere, and I finally found you in space, but then you were gone somewhere else right away. And I was like, yeah, I've learned to travel in like a nanosecond over vast distance.
That's awesome. Yeah, it seems like everybody kind of has their own everybody has their own unique gifts too. So it seems like that could be is one of yours. A fast traveler.
What was funny is I never thought about it too was I was watching the Flash on CW, and they go, we had to build him a suit because he was burning his clothes. He was traveling so fast. The friction would burn his clothes off. And I was sitting there thinking, as I'm going around, I never thought about, here on Earth, would the outfit go with you? Or would you have to have a stop-off place that's got clothes for you so you can quickly get presentable, go do what you're doing, come back?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, that's fun. That's fun. That's exciting.
So if you could have any gift like that of transporting or knowledge or anything, what one would you want?
That's tough. I guess maybe like teleportation could be cool, to teleport anywhere. That would be cool. But I also not just like physical places, I guess in like the hall of records, or like the halls of Amenti, or just going to explore inner Earth, places like that. I think that sounds fun.
Well, what's interesting as you say that is Marvel had a character. I reference TV and movies, so forgive me for that. It's just my mind's way of making it easy to explain. Yeah. Is they had a character called Nightcrawler, and he could teleport anywhere in air or on ground across vast distance. And he said, once I see it in my mind, I can go there.
Yeah.
So once I vision it, I'm there.
That's awesome. But also, I guess I would kind of like to do something kind of like Doctor Who, where he's also, it's more quantum, and it's like in the astral realms too, and these other dimensional and also other timelines. I think that would be cool.
Oh, you are totally speaking my language. That was that was actually my introduction to disclosure.
Really?
Watching Doctor Who and realizing all of this stuff that they're talking about in this show is real.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing.
So who's your favorite Doctor?
So actually, just now I realized I meant to say Doctor Strange, but I do want to watch Doctor Who also. I've seen kind of like snippets, and I know that would be a show that I would really like to watch though. Yeah, I meant to say Doctor Strange.
Well, Doctor Strange is pretty cool too.
Yeah. Which Doctor is your favorite though? So that maybe I can go back and watch that one.
So it's interesting because the modern Doctor Who that everyone is introduced to started with 9, and that was kind of the bridge of the old to the new. So he was kind of like didn't want to die facing his mortality, so to speak. And then 10 arrives, and 10 was the jovial, playful, like, I'm smart, nothing can stop me kind of Doctor. And that's the one that everyone kind of loved, and that was David Tennant did that. Then 11 gets kind of moody, or not really moody. He was more of the, I don't like having companions because it hurts when you can't stay with them and they move on. And
Sounds
so
kind of
each
moody.
one has different personalities, so
Okay.
so to speak. But 10 was the longest one, and they actually brought him back
Oh, interesting.
for a thing. But the thing about Doctor Who that got me that was so interesting was not only was he traveling through time and space and helping all these people,
Yeah.
but when it came to his time to end,
Mm-hmm.
he would let go of this energy, and the energy would change the TARDIS, which was his craft.
Mm-hmm.
On the inside, the outside always looked the same, but the inside changed to fit the new look, and he would regenerate to a new person. Same thing, same life, but different likes, different attitude, and everything. And so it's like, it was just kind of cool to see. Yeah, even though technically he died, he didn't die. He just became another version.
That's awesome. Yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that. Victor says the Ninth Doctor was his introduction to it in the chat.
That was Christopher Eccleston, if I remember right.
Yeah.
But Doctor Strange, he's interesting to me because his character, I feel like in the Doctor Strange, the first movie was like getting to know him, and it was like, yeah, I can kind of relate, you know, going through everything. But then when it got to the multiverse, I was like, dude, you were like arrogant and rude and condescending. What happened to you?
He was kind of like that in the beginning too, maybe. Don't you think? Maybe a little bit. Well, he didn't believe. Actually, I think I've only seen the first Doctor Strange movie, but I've kind of seen like bits and pieces or like shorts about kind of like the multiverse type stuff that's going on. I'm so behind in Marvel, extremely behind. Like I stopped watching them because now you have to like everything ties in together, and I like haven't watched him for like a long time. But yeah, in the first Doctor Strange, he was a doctor, so he didn't believe that any of that was real, and so I think that was just very fitting for like a lot of what a lot of the collective is going through and kind of the struggle between like what's real and what's not. And yeah, and that the chick, she like kind of like punched him into his astral body, and that's whenever I was like, okay, this is cool. I like that.
And the fact that he just moves his hand and all of a sudden a portal opens, and I was like, that's real. You could actually do that.
Yeah. So that's what I liked about that.
Yeah. I have to admit, I like Marvel over DC because I feel like Marvel is disclosing stuff.
I could see that. Yeah, I've been wanting to go back and watch. I've got a friend, Katie. She watches a lot of them. I think like Blue Beetle, she was talking about. Isn't there a lot of like Egyptian stuff going on in that kind of like esoteric stuff? I haven't seen it yet.
The Egyptian one would be, I think it was Dark Moon or something. But it's not Blue Beetle. I mean, he could be part Egyptian, but the one I'm thinking of is it's got a crescent moon, and he becomes a whole nother being and wakes up and has no memory of what happened, and is like has to come to terms with sharing his body with another being.
Interesting. That sounds kind of like relatable in some ways.
Yeah. With you though, I'm a little bit behind on Marvel too because it was put onto Disney Plus. And so I don't like what Disney's doing right now. And so it's like, yeah, I had to give up Star Wars and Marvel because of Disney just outpricing themselves and just going way off the rails with everything. Moon Knight, that was it.
Moon Knight. I've never even heard of that one.
I hadn't either until I watched it.
Interesting.
So, Lily, out of respect of time, we are about 4 minutes to you're needing to head out for
Awesome.
another event. So, I put a bunch of links that you shared with me in the description.
Okay.
Is there anywhere that you like people to reach out to you if they will have questions for you?
Yeah, so I actually just made a new website, lilynovacontact.com. So they can go there. I also have my original website, lilynovaspaceart.com, which is probably where probably the link that's in the description. So either one of those. And yeah, there's like a contact form on there, or you can reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. And then also the new book. Also, here's the new book available on Amazon. Contact by Lily Nova. That's all you have to do. Just search Contact by Lily Nova, and it's on Amazon.
I think I got the Kindle, or it's on my wish list.
Yeah. There's an ebook version too. Yeah, there's an ebook version.
I'm definitely looking forward to the book. And so, what is something I like to ask of all the guests now with this season is, what is a piece of golden nugget information you, out of your experience in life, would like to leave the audience with?
Golden nugget piece of information. I would just like to say, that we each have our unique roles and frequency and gifts and something unique that we each bring to the table. So I think right now it's really important to connect with like-minded individuals and keep sharing this information and keep asking questions and keep being curious and also don't get too serious about things. Come at it from a very curious and playful state of mind. I think I've had the best luck and the most profound spiritual and paranormal experiences whenever I've been in, a positive state and playful and curious. And we're very powerful creators and manifestors. So whatever we set our minds to and consistently work towards that, we can achieve and create and experience amazing things. So that's kind of
awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to thank the chat group and everyone watching, and thank you, Lily, for coming on. I know talking on Facebook is one thing, and agreeing to come on the show. Thank you for trusting me.
Yeah, no problem. It's been wonderful speaking with you. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, and perhaps we'll have you on again.
Yeah, and I need to introduce you to Margie K. I think you'll really like her.
I would totally be open to that.
Yeah. I'll shoot you a DM about it.
All
right. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. And so to everyone out there, please make it a blessed day, evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And as Lily and I like to say, fill it with love and joy. Be who you are. Share your individuality with the world. Don't let others tell you who you are. Thank you, and good night, everyone.
Bye.